Back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie Schneiderite. We have a win recap we're going to go through. We're going to talk about basically everything we saw and heard and read regarding the Rutgers 24-7 victory over Northwestern in the opener. 1-0 in the Big Ten, always a great way to start off conference play. Little weird to have it the first game of the season, but we'll take it. We're also going to kind of break down what Greg Schiano said at his presser today, do a little light preview on the Temple game for next week, this Saturday. Just to kind of give you guys a heads up, we will have the same beat reporter that we had on last year to discuss Temple on this year on Thursday, so look out in your podcast feeds for that. Also kind of discuss a little small Dylan Harper update. I guess small in some respects, but Trilly Donovan dropped another bomb. And we'll kind of talk about what we think of that. Let's just start off the top, though. Rutgers, in dominating fashion, beat Northwestern on Sunday, 24-7. You could say that the score doesn't really indicate how big of a beatdown it was. Rutgers at no point was not in control of that game. From basically the opening kickoff, where Rutgers went 16 plays, 75 yards for a touchdown, ate up 8 minutes of clock. This one seemed like it was kind of in the bag. Let's kind of talk high-level stuff. Just give me one thought right off the top of your head about what you were really impressed with from this team on Sunday.
Competent offense, complementary offense. Is that what he called it last time? Complementary football. Yeah, that's. Yep. I'll go with that. Complementary football. They played smart. There was no real bad decisions from Gavin. Did he kind of miss a couple wide open guys? Yeah, but not more so missing. It was just I guess he just didn't see it completely at all. Isaiah Washington was open on that one touchdown. If you hit Dremel a little sooner on that one play, it probably would have been at least a big chunk play instead of, or maybe not a touchdown. But I thought there was a couple plays. Again, even guys were just covered in the end zone instead of trying to thread something that really isn't there. It seemed like Gavin was just smart with the football. He didn't really push anything that he couldn't get to. I thought overall Gavin had a great game, but just if you want my one thought, it'd probably be complimentary football. It was pretty good.
For me, I'll give myself the same prompt. I thought this team looked so much more well coached and prepared than they were at any point last year. I kept just thinking everything looked a lot cleaner, both in execution and play calling. There wasn't any plays that got blown up by a missed assignment or a missed block. There wasn't really any, free blitzers that were getting into the backfield on Gavin. There was no chaos at the line where everyone's looking over for a play call or a change or an audible or anything like that. There was no delay of game penalties. Gavin was getting through the huddle. He was getting to the line, making the play call. Everyone was on the same page. There was no legal motion, no legal formation. I just thought everything looked like this team has actually, really gotten a lot of this offense down and feels comfortable with it. There's also some great in-game adjustments from Soraka. If you look early on in the game, there was some kind of really poor throws from Gavin in the first quarter, and they kind of just shifted the play calling to really just kind of focus on the stuff he was clearly most comfortable with. Mm-hmm. But let's kind of dive right into from this conversation into the offense. In general, the big question all offseason was Gavin Wimsatt. He was named the quarterback early on. Is he the guy to lead this team? I thought, quite frankly, Gavin had by far his best games at Scarlet Night on Saturday. If you look at the stat line, he went 17 for 29. So that's 58% completion percentage for 163 yards and one touchdown, no interceptions. He ran 9 times for 33 yards and a touchdown. What were your kind of just off the top of your head thoughts about how Gavin played on Saturday?
Like I said before, he played really smart, and I think that's the biggest thing you can ask out of him, especially because in the past he hasn't played too smart. He's even made questionable throws in training camp that made me question him as QB1, but I thought he played really smart. He didn't do anything too crazy. I thought he could have probably tucked the ball and ran a little more, but I get it. Design play calls. You got to do what your coach is telling you to do. But yeah, no, I just think and then the one really nice pass was probably, I think, maybe the best pass of his career so far. He was on the run, threw across his body and hit Dremel on that right across the middle of the field or left side of the field, and it was beautiful dart. But yeah, those first 2 drives, that's kind of what I expected Rutgers football to be. It's going to be a run-heavy team. Kirk Shiraka knows that better than anyone, considering he ran Mohamed Ibrahim nearly into the ground last year.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think considering they didn't have their starting running backs, you had an offensive line that I guess you technically replaced the center like last second and went with Zelinskis. I thought, and your wide receiver core's but I thought overall everything, you didn't really give Gavin many weapons, but he managed to do some stuff without significant weapons. So I thought he had a really good game overall.
Yeah, it was a bit of a I'll give Gavin a ton of credit because I kind of went through and made notes on like all the good and bad plays I thought he made on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And basically all the bad plays were early in the game. So like first quarter, like the first or second or third drive were a lot of his like head scratchers. But as the game got on, clearly he got more comfortable, more confident, and made fewer mistakes. And in the first 2 drives, he threw the ball 16 times. So that was about, the first 18 minutes of the game. The rest of the game, he only threw 13 times. So that's, when you throw the ball less, you're going to have less opportunities for mistakes or to look good. So that's a caveat I'll throw out there. But you mentioned that 4th and 5 throw to Dremel on the run. Obviously, I thought as well that was the play of the game for him because that also could have swung momentum. Had we not picked it up there, Northwestern's getting the ball at around midfield in a 0-0 game. And who knows how a game can kind of unfold after that. But the play before that, it was a 3rd and 5. It looked like there was some miscommunication on either what route the receiver was running or Gavin thought the receiver was throwing a different route. Anyway, he threw it basically right to the face mask of a defender who thankfully dropped the ball.
Yeah.
There was a few wide open receivers that he just didn't see or miss. There was a few wide open running lanes on RPOs that he could have taken. There's one play in particular where it was 1st and 10 with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left in the first quarter. Northwestern rushed 5. Gavin did a really good job stepping up in the pocket, avoiding the rush. He had a wide open lane. Like he probably had nothing but green for like 15 yards on the left side of the field. He instead threw it into double or triple coverage. He was wide open. It was a throw to Isaiah Washington, who he threw too late and almost got picked off as well. So there was a lot of good, a lot of bad. I thought overall more good than bad. I thought this was about as good of a performance as you could have expected for a 19-year-old quarterback making, maybe his 10th start as a starter at Rutgers in a new system, in a conference game. It was hot out there. All these guys are learning a new system. There's a lot of new, like you said, a lot of new pass catchers. So overall, I thought this was a very promising first start, but I think we need to kind of contextualize things. We talked about it last week. Northwestern has 2 scholarship defensive tackles.
Yeah.
They've gone 4-20 in the last 2 seasons. Last year they went 1-11. They lost their, the best coach in program history this summer due to scandal, and they replaced him with a guy who's never coached at the FBS level, let alone been a head coach at the FBS level. So this is a team that is probably going to be the 2nd or 3rd worst team we play all year. So I just want everyone to understand where we are as a team. We're clearly better than last year, in my opinion. We dominated a team that we should have dominated, and we got an easy win. So we took care of business, but we just need to understand the team that we played against is going to be one of the worst teams we play all year. So there's still a lot to clean up. It's a whole lot better to clean up mistakes after a win than after a loss, for sure.
Yeah, you're not kidding. There's a lot of still question marks about this team, like you said. I do think it was a good win, a solid win, Big Ten win nonetheless. But there's still a lot of issues that need to be figured out. Running back, mind you, they looked decent, and I know even Schiano said it in post game. Like Benjamin was looking pretty good, and he could have broke open a couple of those big runs. And I thought his vision was phenomenal for a true freshman. But end of the day, the running back room averaged less than, if you count if you count Gavin's rushing too, it's like under 3 yards a carry. It's not good.
Yeah.
The offensive line's still a work in progress. They were rotating guys in and out, and I was told that's basically because of guys were just cramping up and they just needed time. It was a hot day. There's no secret about that. And when you're a massive human being like Holland Pierce, Curtis Dunlap, 2 of the guys that were rotated in and out, it makes sense. But they still need to get better at blocking. There was one play where I think it was Zelinskis and I forget who the right guard was in at the time. I want to say it was Chafani, where they're literally like blocking the same guy, and one guy gets right or Bryce Gallagher would get right through the middle and would just completely whiff on the tackle. And it's like, all right, well, maybe you're lucky he's missing a lot, but you're not going to get that lucky when it comes to real Big Ten play. So I do think the offensive line as a whole definitely needs some work still. The right side especially. I know Needham played everything but one snap. Same for Zelinskis. But I think that right side between Needham and Trafani or Needham and Felter or whoever the hell it is, they still need to figure some things out there.
Yeah, and also Gavin wasn't really pressured all game, so he was able to get to his first, second read consistently, and I think that's why he looked better because he was doing a good job, going through his progressions. I agree that while the running game, if you look at the raw numbers, as a team we went 44 rushes for 122 yards. I thought they looked better than that, honestly, because a lot of those runs, like we converted a lot of third and shorts, a lot of fourth and shorts. So there's a stat in, at least they keep track of it in terms of NFL. It's called success rate. And that just means like, if it's a 3rd and 1 and you get 2 yards, that's considered a successful run. Whereas if it's 1st and 10 and you get 2 yards, that's not considered a successful run. So I'd imagine there's a lot more successful runs than not successful runs in this game, just due to situational football. But in terms of just like converting, Rutgers did just a phenomenal job converting on 3rd and 4th down yesterday. They converted 8 of 18 third downs on the day. That's at 44.4%. Last year on the season, they only converted 25.8% of their third downs. They converted 3 of 3 on 4th down. Last year, they were 7 for 19 on the year in terms of converting on 4th down, which is about 35%. So it's great to see that, you have all these metrics that are clearly improving. And I think a lot of that has to do with just Kirk calling a great game. Like he knew which plays to call at the right moments and the right opportunities. And our guys executed too. You got to give them credit for actually going out there and running those plays successfully. Who was a guy that stood out the most for you on offense?
On offense, I think it's hard not to say Benjamin, but just because like he was getting like a guaranteed 3-4 yards, it seemed like. I know, like I said before, the yards per carry doesn't really show that because there was a couple where he got hit in the backfield too, mind you, and there's a couple where he should have been hit in the backfield, but he did that one quick cut and gets like a 3-yard gain. And I'm like, holy shit, this kid's a freshman, like very impressive. And I do have to say, every time I talk to someone, they reference Ed Gear. I don't know how to pronounce it. The 2024 commit, and they're saying he's the same exact type back. He's small, he's shifty, he's quick as hell, great vision. So you might have another one in the stable as well. But I think I have to go with Deshaun Benjamin. I wanted to say Ian Strong because of the one phenomenal catch, but they really only targeted him like one other time or 2 other times, and that was kind of it for the game, which I thought was a little odd considering he proved that he had pretty good hands, great route running. I know he's a true freshman. He has to earn his time, but I thought he was better than the rest of the receiving core. I don't think there's really a question there. So I'll go with Benjamin now, 100%.
Yeah, I would say other than Gavin, who I, already have said, I think he had his best game as a Scarlet Knight. I think the guy who stood up for me was Ian Strong. Like, I think he only had 2 catches, but one was the top play on Sunday on ESPN, and it was well-deserved. That was a fantastic, high pointing in the corner of the end zone, having the awareness of where he is on the field to get 1 foot down. And then he had that, it's easy to forget, his second catch was on a tip pass. Gavin, was going for the release valve to the running back. Yeah. He throws it high. I think Benjamin had to jump and couldn't catch it. It tipped off his hands. And Ian Strong was about 10 yards down the field and just immediately sees it, dives towards the ball and catches it, gets 2 hands under the ball. They didn't even have to review it because it was clear from the replay that it was a clean catch. But just those were the 2 catches he made to start the year. I don't think he could have made a stronger first impression to Power 5 football than Ian Strong made. Really excited to see how he does moving forward.
I think you can argue he should be starting next week. Personally,
I think he should be, yeah.
I know they targeted Isaiah Washington the most. I think he had 8 or 7 targets on the day, but I can't see a reason why Ian Strong's not. I know Washington, veteran, first rookie, freshman, whatever you want to call him. But I think Ian Strong definitely earned the right to at least be a starter out there. I think he proved he has hands. Like I said before, he's been a good route runner. Seen him all training camp. He's looked pretty damn good. Greg's hyped him up in training camp. There's reasons for this. He's that legit. And I know I've said it before, and I'll say it again. When you see his ranking previously from his recruits, not my fault. I pushed for an update, and we just didn't get it. So he is a 2-star still, technically, on our site. But besides the point, he's outplaying his ranking already. So.
Yep. Yeah, and one final thing on the offense. I put this stat on Twitter, so some of you guys might have seen it already. So last season, Rutgers only had 2 drives on the entire season of 15-plus plays. They had one against Iowa, which ended up in a turnover on downs, and they had another against Indiana. The first 2 offensive drives of the 2023 season, so the first 2 offensive drives against Northwestern, 16 plays, 16 plays. Promising start. That just shows that they're able to make things happen on offense. They're able to continue drives. They're able to convert on 3rd down, convert on 4th down. You really love to see that because as we've been telling you guys, as we've seen, there's not many explosive playmakers, especially with a guy like Sam Brown, who's not on the field right now, especially with a guy like Nassim Brantley, who we've talked about, who is expected to be a big contributor this year, not able to play right now. You need to be able to kind of scrape together first downs and scrape together drives, and that's what they did the first quarter. That's what we're going to have to continue to do throughout the season, and I think a big part of that is Kirk Soraka really just kind of knowing how to call plays in the moment. What, because it's a big part of this is just kind of like feel. It's like, okay, the last time we called this, it didn't really look even close to competent, so I'm not going to call that again the rest of the game. I think there's too many coaches who just kind of like, have made a predetermined decision that this is the kind of game I want to call, and I'm going to call it. And if it doesn't work out, then, whatever.
Okay,
but it seems
Sean
like
Gleason.
Kirk's way more of kind of an artist about this kind of stuff, where you kind of, can feel how a game is going, can see what's working in the moment. Because there might be plays that, Gavin feels comfortable with, but against a certain defense or against certain teams' personnel, it's just not going to work because they either have a duo of really fast linebackers or they have really good safeties or whatever the reason. So you kind of have to leave that play off the play sheet that game. There wasn't really much he had to leave off the play sheet on Sunday, but my point is he just called a great game, and I'm excited to see what he does against better opponents as the season goes on, because I do think he gives us an edge in terms of play calling.
Yeah, definitely helps when you're in the box too, instead of on the field.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, that was a big difference maker, and he's got a trustworthy guy on the sideline. It sounds like too, and Dave Brock. I know someone mentioned it today at practice. Just being able to, I think actually Brian asked Schiano about it, but being able to relay to a guy you trust on the sideline is huge, especially when you have a former OC and a veteran coach in Brock on the sideline and Strzok in the booth. So it's the best seat in the house. Schiano even said it himself when he first got back on the banks for tenure 2.0. And I don't know why Gleason didn't do it, but he preferred to be on the sideline and talk to quarterbacks. Maybe there's no trust between him and the quarterbacks, but I mean, he got a pretty nice view this weekend though of the offense that he was coaching, and it totally different. So I don't want to say it was his fault, but let's be honest, it was clearly his fault.
Yeah. And we had 2 penalties in total on the day. Yeah. I don't believe they came until late in the game. So for the first 3.5 quarters, we didn't have any penalties. We didn't have any offensive turnovers. Obviously, Rochelle fumbled the punt at the end of the game, which led to Northwestern getting a short field and kind of blowing this shutout. I'm the team should basically treat this like they got a shutout, even though they didn't, because that's how dominant they were. When you set a team up, on the 25-yard line with 3 minutes left to go, you're probably going to score. Yeah. But just overall, really well played game. Just a ton of positives to take away, and the negatives that you take away, you hope to get fixed for Virginia Tech, because Temple's not really a great team either. Yeah. Let's jump to the defensive side of the ball. Rutgers on the day, 5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, both coming from Max Melton and from Robert Longerbeams. Both were super athletic plays. Yeah. What did you think of the defense overall? What you saw? What's kind of like the first thing that comes to mind with how the defense played?
I mean, the rushing defense, they allowed technically it was 12 yards throughout the entire game. It was 1 yard through 3 quarters. Wow. 1 whole yard. That was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I didn't believe it at first, and I went back to look, and I'm like, oh my god, this is 1 yard right now. Like this is a Chris Ash level performance we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Just absolutely dominant. I know Aaron Lewis didn't register any sacks, but he was back there all day in the backfield. Wesley Bailey looked good up until his injury. Trying to think, Tyreen Powell as a pass rusher looked phenomenal. He smacked.
Oh, yeah.
I know he got the one sack, but he also smacked Ben Bryant right before that too. Ben Bryant just had a rough day overall. That man was just getting beat to hell. The D line as a whole, just a bunch of studs. And then like Wesley Bailey goes down, Kenny Fletcher comes in, he gets a sack and a half, and it's like, oh my god, there's a sack and a tackle for loss and a half. But there's just so many weapons there, and Isaiah Aiton looked good, Mayan Ahanatu looked good, Renee Conga filled in at one point and looked pretty good. We saw Jordan Thompson out there. We saw everyone under the sun. This defensive line room is just deeper than deep, and a lot of them did say after the game that it was for their D-line coach and Marquise Watson, who wasn't able to be at the game due to a medical emergency. But the good news there is that it sounds like he's progressing, all's looking well, and he should be able to rejoin the team soon. So, but I think that D-line group he's got a special group over there.
Yeah, just the number of guys who were getting pressure regularly on the quarterback was definitely promising. We had 5 different guys with sacks this game, which is always great to see. I thought even guys on the second and third unit for the defensive line looked great. Like Renee Conga, he was in the backfield all afternoon. Yeah. He had 1 sack against and he's just a huge guy too.
Yeah,
I think his sack came when he was rushing with Isaiah Aiton, and those guys look pretty comparable in size next to each other. Isaiah Aiton obviously is a guy we've been talking about all offseason as just like a physical specimen. He's the transfer who came in from Ole Miss. I think he was also warming up without a shirt on, and he also came off the bus first. So the strategy of having him be the guy who comes off the bus first is happening in terms of the defensive line. I thought this is a pretty just clean game defensively. You already talked about the rush defense. The pass defense was great too. Just an overall, I think if you're grading out how the defense played on Saturday or on Sunday, it's hard giving them anything less than an A. I thought they played a great game. Joe Harrisimiak dialed up some really effective blitzes. Like Shaquan Loyal came in on a sack, I believe, on a 3rd down.
Yep.
The Tyreen Powell, he basically was totally untouched from his linebacker position when he got his sack. Yeah. Just he continues to just get even better as a coordinator, in my opinion. The one thing that really surprised me was the lack of rotation at linebacker. We saw that last year.
I asked Schiano about that.
Yeah. So what did Schiano have to say about that?
So basically, I said to him, I was like, hey, like you didn't really rotate linebackers, you didn't rotate DBs. He did say basically it's just because they were on the field. The offense was on the field for the entire game. They had almost 40 minutes of time of possession. What was it, 30-something maybe? I forget the exact numbers, but the team as a whole was just the offense was on the field for 37 minutes to be exact. 37:56, so we'll go 38. That's almost the entire game. So Schiano said he was a little can't be upset, but he was just upset he wasn't able to get more guys reps because those guys need reps behind them, behind the starters. These guys are a little green and they need some reps, but the starters as a whole just they were too good to take out mostly too, but not a ton of snaps on defense. So it makes sense to let them rock, let them play the whole game.
Yeah, and I was really surprised that a guy like Moses Walker didn't get in the game at some point, because I know he was obviously a super highly rated recruit. I think he was the number 1 recruit in the state of New York at the time. I think he was the highest rated recruit of the class of 22, if I'm remembering correctly.
22, yep.
Obviously he tore his ACL and he was recovering from that, but yeah, I think if you look at the snap counts, I believe that Tyreem and Deion Jennings played basically every snap on defense.
And the 3rd linebacker.
Oh, Mo Toure. He looked great coming back too. He played all over the field though. He got a sack late in the game. It's just so great to get a guy like Mo Toure back, because that's just like adding another Maserati in your garage in terms of defensive linemen.
Yeah.
It's really promising to see him back at full health.
Yeah. It's in the way they used him too. Like he played a ton of linebacker, don't get me wrong. But then he moves to defensive end. That was a couple times. Then like on 3rd down packages, he's playing on the interior. And I'm like, you have a pass rush package of Toure, Aiton, Wesley Bailey, and Aaron Lewis. Like one of them is getting past the lineman. Like, you're going to get at least a pressure at the very minimum. But I thought that was absolutely insane, and they love to use him, and it worked out pretty well.
So speaking of guys who didn't really play, all offseason we had kind of penciled in Ireland Brown as the starting quarterback.
Shocking.
Or starting center, sorry. He didn't play really at all. I think he played one snap, according to PFF. Gus Zielinskis came in and started. Obviously, he played a lot during his true freshman season. He didn't play nearly as much last year. Just kind of how on a scale of 1 to 10, how shocking was that for you as somebody who covers the team, as somebody who goes to practice?
Considering I thought he was a solidified starter and one of only 3 solidified starters on that line, I was absolutely shocked. Like, I was talking to the other guys in the press box, and I was like, "Is that Zielinskis warming up with the first team?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's weird." And then Brian tweeted out his thing, and then like a couple minutes later, it's like, "Oh, Zielinskis is in with the first team. What the fuck's going on? Maybe it's just maybe Ireland Brown's hurt." And I'm like, "No, he's right there on the sideline. Maybe whatever. Maybe he's hurt." Gets to the late game. It was that one snap with the quarterback Neal, and I'm like, Ireland Brown's in there. Like, what the why even like weird. Why like what are we doing here?
Yep.
But yeah, no, absolutely shocking. I didn't see it coming. I got to talk to Gus today actually, following practice, and when I was talking to him, I was like, "So what was it like to be like named starter?" He goes, "I didn't really find out until like right before the game," and I was like, "Okay, so you're 1, he's 2, blah blah blah." And he's like, "No, like we don't know who's the starter. We don't care who the starter is." And I'm like, "What the fuck happened weird. Here? Like, what is going on?" Like, he didn't really dive too much more into it, but he did just say that neither of them's the starter, and I was like, all right, well, that's what are we doing? Like, we're just gonna go with the guy. Don't get me wrong, Zielinskis is good. I thought he was solid. He had his moments where it was not so solid, but I thought he was overall solid on the day. But the offensive line as a whole was rotating, and I know I said before mostly it's because of cramping, but for the other guys. But it seems like right guard's still a position that they don't really know what to do, because I think Felter ended up getting 40-plus snaps at guard. Right tackle, Needham played the whole game, so I think that's pretty solidified. Left tackle, Taj White looked pretty good as a backup. But yeah, going back to Zielinskis, that was probably the most like surprising thing of the day, I would say.
So if that's the most surprising thing of the day, that's got to put it at least a 9 on the surprise scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Where would you put Sam Brown not playing in terms of the surprise scale? Give me a 1 to 10, the surprise that he didn't play. A 1?
Yeah, like I didn't think he was going to play. The man hasn't practiced at all, basically. I know he's questionable. I saw him doing some cuts on pregame at the corner end zone or right before the end zone. And he probably could have. They still say he probably could have went if he had to. But again, he hasn't practiced really that much. I don't even think we'll probably see him this weekend. I don't really know, because practice access is completely different during the season. It's kind of straight up cut off. So this is just my personal guess. I don't think we'll see him play, but to be determined. He was questionable. He wasn't listed as out, which tells you that they thought there might have been a shot. But I do think you're going to have to get some of that rust knocked off of him, because it's been a while since he's played football. The same thing with Mo Toure. Like, I think that was a great game. I thought that was phenomenal, but he hasn't played, you got to think, since 2021. It's been a long, long time. So, yeah, I'd probably put that as like a 1, maybe 2 if you really want to go a little bit higher, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I do think that they've kind of been pretty mum about Sam Brown all camp. We haven't heard him really talked up. I know that at some point it was either Schiano or Sam Brown himself said he was 100% healthy, and I don't know if that was just, I think that was just kind of them trying to keep a lid on things. Do you expect him back anytime soon? Is this a new injury? Is he still just recovering?
It's still
or is this total like a week-to-week thing?
I think it's probably week-to-week if I had to put my doctor cap on and get my stethoscope out. But it's probably week-to-week for now. I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if he'll go this week. Especially, I don't think you need him this week.
No, you probably don't. You hopefully would not, at least. Yeah.
Ideally, though, you probably want to knock some rust off before Virginia Tech, who I think is a pretty good opponent. So I would say I'm going to say no go this week, but might be back for Virginia Tech. It's really week to week. It's a weird injury, and it's every injury is different. Like everyone recovers at a different rate.
Yep.
So we'll just kind of wait and see what happens there.
Yeah, and obviously this upcoming week we play a Temple Owls team who was down. Yeah, it was down pretty bad to Akron and ended up making a comeback. So you got to credit them for that. But I believe they were down 21-7 in the second half. Ended up winning the game 24-21. Won it on the road, so it's not like Akron's, the swamp or anything. But winning a game on the road when you're down 2 touchdowns in the second half, it's an accomplishment. I would say it's the hardest thing in the world to do if you're Temple, because you kind of put yourself in that hole to begin with. But this is also a team that, from what I understand, may have been looking ahead to the Rutgers game. From what you've heard, they've been talking a lot of shit. Yeah. This is a game they've had circled on their calendar. This is a game they really thought they would win last year. I don't think they like getting their shit pushed in 2021 when we beat them 61-14.
Yeah.
I don't expect that kind of beatdown really ever, because that's just kind of a rogue wave thing. They threw so many. By the second half, they had like random guys from who hadn't played college football before stepping up and just throwing softballs to our DBs. I think we had like 3 defensive or special teams touchdowns that game.
Yeah.
The Rutgers opened up as a 10-point favorite. It's now been bet down to 9.5. So there has been some money coming in on Temple, which is never something you want to see early in the week. But I still feel pretty damn confident about this game, especially it's a night game at Rutgers. It's the blackout game. I think it was a great crowd on Sunday. I wasn't there, but on TV it looked great. You said it was pretty loud and pretty full.
Phenomenal.
I expect this game to be pretty close to a sellout, especially because all the students will be actually on campus now. So the student section will be full. It's much more convenient to get to the stadium and get inside the stadium for a night game than a 12 o'clock game on a Sunday of a holiday weekend. So I'm expecting a huge crowd for this Temple game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I do think they'll cover the spread. Like you said, it's down to 9.5 now. The crowd was phenomenal, and even the students showed up like in droves. Like those corner spots of the student section that usually like it's a little barren, absolutely filled. Like I actually tweeted a picture like 3 minutes to kickoff, and I was like 6 minutes into the game, I'm like, damn, I got to tweet another picture because that picture's not doing this one justice. Like that first one was like, it was pretty barren. The whole thing was kind of empty, and it was a late arriving crowd. But like once they filled in, it was like, holy shit, this is a packed crowd for a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
I do think Temple, or I shouldn't say I think, I know Temple their staff has been saying some things this offseason that they're pretty confident this year going into the Rutgers matchup. So it does sound like they might have been looking ahead. And this isn't a knock against them, but Joe Moorhead is the head coach of Akron. I know, mind you, it's Akron, but he's still a hell of an offensive mind and was one of the better OCs in college football just like, 3-4 years ago before he got the Mississippi State job, maybe a little longer.
Yep.
But he was known as one of the best offensive minds in football. So you can't really knock the win too bad, but the hell of a comeback for them. And I think that Warner kid, he looked like shit in the beginning, but I think in the second half he looked like lights out, and I was like, oh, all right, well maybe he is pretty good. So he gave Rutgers fits last year. I know Schiano talked about it in his presser today. He mentioned multiple defensive players on that Temple defense by name, mentioned their defensive coordinator as well. Their defense is pretty good. Their offense, it's a work in progress. So I don't think it's a pushover game, but I do think Rutgers will win this one pretty nicely.
Yeah, totally agree. Like we said, we'll have Kyle Gauss or Goss. I think it's Goss, his name.
I recall.
Goss.
Yeah,
Kyle Goss from. Is he from the Temple rival site?
Yes, owlscoop.com.
Yep, from owlscoop.com. We'll be coming on the show on Thursday to talk everything about the matchup, give us some predictions, players to watch. So definitely tune in on Thursday. You'll have all the information you need for the Saturday night matchup against Temple. Is there anything else from the Schiano presser that you wanted to hit on before we turn our attention to this Dylan Harper news that broke today? This Dylan Harper article, I should say. I don't know.
Let's see. I got the transcript in front of me. I'm trying to just look it over real quick. I said the Watson update. The transfer, the Nassim Brantley stuff.
Yeah. What did he have to say on that?
Well, you guys saw him on Saturday or Sunday, I should say. He was pretty vivid. Said he was boiling over to the point where he's hot. No, I forget what he said. He said something like,
I think he said he was something. He was so hot about it that he could like fry an egg on his head.
Yeah,
I believe the quote.
and you'll see it in the video today. It's like, yeah, it's a violation, but it's an eligibility question, or it's not a violation. It's an eligibility question. I'm not going to get in details. It's still under advisement, but you could see Saturday how disappointed I was. This is a kid who came here after a tragic compound fracture of his leg, playing at another school. I'm at a loss. I'm really at a loss. I'll keep working. The kid deserves to play. There's no funny business going on here. And then kind of just did like a lock and key. Like, I'm done saying stuff because you can get in pretty serious trouble with NCAA with this. I mean, hell, Jim Harbaugh bought a fucking hamburger for a kid and got suspended.
Yep.
But yeah, so it's an eligibility issue, which makes sense because so you still need a waiver no matter what, even if you're a grad transfer. He transferred twice though, so it's Sacred Heart, and then went to Western Illinois, and now he's at Rutgers. So I believe that's the exact issue, and it has something to do with Western Illinois kind of dicking him around a little bit. Seems like. I don't know what happened between. I don't even know who the hell's the coaching staff at Western Illinois. Is that even a full-time job? Like, is that like a part-time job? Is that like a high school coach? High school coaches might make more.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
It seems like It seems like they're kind of pissed and they didn't really approve the transfer. Now, whether it be Western Illinois, whether it be the NCAA just being like, no, two-time transfers, we're done. Let's put our foot down, and that's how we're gonna stop them. Like, no, it's not gonna work. Number one. But it seems like they're kind of screwing the kid over because he probably would have been out there this weekend, at least as wide, maybe a starter, maybe not a starter, probably a starter if I had to guess. But yeah, it's definitely an issue, and we'll see if the NCAA does something about it or not.
Well, I would not hold our breath because we've seen how the NCAA has treated not only us but these kind of issues in the past, and they're trying to crack down on it harder. So who knows? Just stay tuned, I guess, because he's got one more year of eligibility, and if for whatever reason there's an eligibility issue this year, he could come back next year.
I guess
use that year of eligibility. It's just unfortunate that the NCAA is inconsistent with these kind of rulings, and they've found a way to screw Rutgers a couple times.
Yeah, he wasn't happy about that one, which I mean, rightfully so.
Yeah, I would be too, but it is what it is. Let's talk the Dylan Harper news. So, Trilly Donovan has been reporting a lot on this situation the last week, I'd say.
Yeah.
We had also reported that Kansas was making a push for Dylan Harper. He's got a lot of people in his ear, it sounds like, between his, on his family side. He's got an NIL agent, and they're all kind of pulling in different directions. Trilly Donovan came out with an article today saying that Dylan Harper is expected to take more official visits, and he specifically named Kansas, Auburn, and Rutgers getting official visits. Obviously, he was at Rutgers this past weekend for the Northwestern game. Ron Harper Jr. got honored at some point during the game, and Dylan was there. The crowd was great about, they had a Harper University sign from the student section. There was a "We Want Dylan" chant. Dylan was schmoozing in the Provident Bank Club, meeting donors, meeting different people. So it sounded like he had a good time, but now he's planning on taking visits, apparently.
Yeah.
There's also the most concerning line from the article was, multiple sources indicated a decision may not come until spring because Harper and his camp want to watch Rutgers' new style of play. Now, this article doesn't fully pass the smell test for me because all offseason it's been Dylan's going to decide early in this school year. He's going to sign before the early signing period, or in the early signing period. We had heard as of even last week that he had recorded a commitment video to Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to expect or what to make of all this. What's your take on this article and these developments?
Well, he said basically there's some fighting in the camp, which makes sense in the Harper camp. Ron Senior wants to has been pushing Duke. He pushed Duke a while ago. There's no secret about that. We know Maria Harper wants Rutgers, wants them to stay close to home, wants them to stay locally, play for Rutgers. Steve Peichel, blah, 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 the connection with Harper Jr. I'm assuming, if I had to guess, Ron is probably pushing Rutgers too. Then there's this NIL agent who's also getting involved now, and he's starting to say, like, hey, like, let's just go visit Kansas, blah, blah, blah. Kansas, you got some money. So we're gonna hit them up and see what we could do. And he's doing, which in the best interest of his client, I guess, if you want to call it that, which is kind of, I guess, what his job is. So it makes sense there. Now, I don't know, because he said he was going to decide after Peach Jam. And he said he was going to decide, what was the other date? Before the basketball season. Now it's getting pushed back again, and it's getting kind of dragging it out now. Now you kind of just like, I don't know if they're like pissed that people are kind of starting to know where he's leaning and stuff's getting out there. The whole thing just seems wacky to me. It still sounds like he knows where he wants to go. It still seems like Rutgers is the heavy favorite. Hell, there was rumors about him visiting Kansas this weekend. Where was he? He was on the sideline of Rutgers. He was in the Provident Bank Club at Rutgers. He was here at Rutgers. It was literally a Harper University sign at Rutgers. So I just don't think it's. I don't know how legit it is. I know he always said he wanted to take those other visits, but I just don't. I can't see him doing it. Now, if he does take those visits, I think Trilly said September 15th or 16th, whatever that weekend is.
September 16th was a date that he highlighted for
Auburn. Right? If I had to guess, they're probably going to say October 5th or 6th or whatever that weekend is, because that's for Kansas, because that's the weekend Cooper Flag's going. So maybe it drags out until November. I hope not. Maybe it drags into spring. I really, really hope not. But it's like getting ridiculous. It is kind of insane. Like, I get you want to play up the hype and all that, but this is just getting like, everyone knows that you're kind of a Rutgers lean. Like, what are we doing? Let's call a spade a spade. You're Scarlet Knight. And if your mom, who's been running your recruitment, wants you to go to Rutgers, you've been heavily leaning Rutgers. You went to Rutgers again this weekend for the third time since I don't even know, this year, I guess, in 2023. Just do it already. What are we waiting for? I think he's like one of the last kids to commit in his class, it seems like. Cooper Flag, mind you, different situation, transferred in from 2025 or reclassed, whatever you want to call it. But everyone else, for the most part, is kind of locked in and committed and ready to sign in November. I would hope he's still going to sign in November. That was his original plan. If not, I really don't know. It's the dragging on is just what gets me a little bit, and it does sound like people are still, especially his NIL agent, are shopping him around. One guy, Basketball Diaries, I don't know how popular they are or who they are. They posted that Rutgers offered $700K and they need to be more in the ballpark of over $1 million. I don't know. The whole thing just seems like absolute madness, and it's just almost dragging on, and it's almost getting like to be kind of not annoying, but it's like, come on, what are we doing?
Yeah, I agree. And all of this, he's not actually coming out and saying anything directly. So this is all like whisper down the lane, and you might talk to a source who, has heard from, somebody who's not even in the family that they're going to do this or that. So it's tough to really tell. It's basically try and hone in on the stuff that you've heard from people you trust and things that you keep hearing.
It's a guessing game.
It is a bit of a guessing game. But this whole like wait to the spring thing is totally new information. I also think this could be, and I don't have any tinfoil near me, this could be a smokescreen, because I feel like his recruitment has kind of gotten away from him in terms of everybody now thinking he's going to Rutgers and that he's a lock and that blah, blah, blah. I think this could possibly be a way of him kind of getting his agency back in his recruitment, able to like kind of, build suspense if he wants to. Not saying that's what's happening for sure, but I could see that being the case, because this is a kid who, like, he's clearly loving the attention and the all the fanfare that comes along with being the number one recruit. And I don't know. I don't think he's in a situation where he feels comfortable announcing right now, clearly. So who knows when it's going to happen.
Yeah, you're probably spot on with it. Like, he just wants to be in charge of it. Like, everyone's been talking about, he's a Rutgers lean. He goes to Rutgers, and it's like Rutgers. And he's like, oh, shit, everyone knows. Like, I wanted to make this like a super surprise and make this big news. But yeah, no, it seems like he's kind of lost grip of it. Now it's like, all right, shit, let me regroup, reconvene. Let me start throwing these rumors out there and those rumors out there. And like you said, it's not from him, so that's the biggest issue that I have. It's probably from like a coach, another coach, a trainer, NIL agents probably pushing shit out there too to try to drive the bargain up. The whole thing's just it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and I was hoping it would end by the 10th, and not looking that way right now.
Yeah, I would still pay attention to that date because that's the date, obviously, that Ron leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't make the commitment before Ron leaves for the NBA, I think we could be in for a long haul here. I could see this going past the early signing day. But this is why it's so tough to we want to bring you guys the most recent and the most relevant news at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And kids change their mind, situations change, and this could be an instance of that. But we've always tried to get you the information as soon as possible, and we've never misled you guys. So just because things don't work out as we were told they would does not necessarily mean the information was wrong or that that is not what their camp was putting out at the time. It's just things change, and that's kind of recruiting. And anybody who's followed this as long as we have, like, this is pretty constant. The one thing you can expect in recruiting is that crazy things will happen and do happen. So all the time. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we sign off here?
Not that I could think of. We're just waiting on that. I know Brandon Stores has his upcoming official visit, or his official visit upcoming. He doesn't have an offer yet, technically, but his dad played for Hain. He's number 46 recruit in the country. A lot of ties in the New York area. His uncle's the assistant coach or was the interim head coach at Manhattan, the assistant coach at NJIT, I believe it is. GCNJ? NJIT. NJIT, we're going to go with that one. The Highlanders. But yeah, no, I mean, I think you got to keep an eye on him. I think he could potentially commit on this visit. I know he has another one at Georgia Tech, technically. It's just technically. I keep saying technically. But I don't know if he'll make it to that one. I think if Rutgers really wants him and pushes for him, I think they could get him, and it might be a hell of a start to the 2025 class with number 46 in the country. So,
yeah, just casually picking up the 46th ranked player in the country, no big deal. This is normal around here these days. Landing top 100 kids constantly. Huge visit calendar for the basketball team this fall.
Yeah, I thought it was funny because someone's like, "Yo, is he a take?" And I was like, 46 in the country. Like, what are we talking about? Like,
yep.
I know he doesn't have an offer yet, but like, he's 46 in the country.
Yeah, I think he's 45 now.
Oh, did he move up?
Yeah, he was a big mover too. He jumped 20 spots in the last update.
There you go.
Kids like this, Rivals is pretty measured with their, how much they'll move a kid up or down typically. So he might have just like blown everyone away, and he was ranked 65. But let's be measured. Let's see if the next time we see him, if he looks that good again. Because not anybody. There's been plenty of times where a guy shoots, 8 for 12 from 3 in a game and just looks like he can't miss, and just has dunked on 2 guys, and that's just one of the best games he played all season, and they just happen to be in attendance for it. Not saying that's the case. I'm just saying you typically want to get a few looks at a kid before you really loft him into the top tier of recruits in a class.
Yeah, I hate because some sites do it and they like update automatically, and that's the nice thing with ours is we give it like a solid 3-month span. It's like, all right, I got to see him twice. I got to see him 3 times. And other sites are like, we saw him once. He dropped 40. Oh my God, number 1. And it's like, no, what are we doing?
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yep. It's all right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Like we said, we have an episode coming Tuesday with Kyle Goss of Owl Scoop going over everything about the Temple Rutgers matchup. And who knows, maybe there'll be another podcast if there's a Dylan announcement at this point.
Please don't say it. Every time we do this, there's going to be I think we did this last Monday or Tuesday, and it's like, all right, that's it. We'll talk to the guy on Thursday, and it's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I'm like, oh, great. Friday.
Yep. If there's news, we will have a podcast for you. How about that? We'll just go with that line from here on out. But for me and Richie, and for Mr. Cheddar, this has been another edition of the Net Report Podcast, signing off.